As the federal government looks to build major projects, they're laying out a plan to make sure Canada has the skilled labor available to do just that, aiming to recruit, train, and hire up to 100,000 skilled trade workers. That'll cost about $6 billion, and included in the plan is up to $10,000 in income support to companies for each apprentice they take on. Part of a new strategy Prime Minister Mark Carney is calling Team Canada Strong.
It's a slogan, but it's more than a slogan because it's really about a team, and when you have a team, you recruit, you train, you put them on the ice. And so the recruitment, it's straight through one-stop shop to come in, to have a modernized Red Seal process. So all of the work and the training is digitized and it can be transferable.
Patty Hajdu is the Minister of Jobs and Families, and she joins me now. Minister, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Great to be here, David.
The timeline for training as many as 100,000 people, I mean, that's a big target. It's a 5-year plan that you have here, but there's shortages now. So how quickly do you think the gap in the skilled trades can start to be closed with this proposal?
Well, there's 3 components to the $6 billion plan. There's the recruit plan, which you're talking about, which is 100,000 paid jobs for young people ages 15 to 30 to get really quality paid experience in some aspect of the skilled trades. And this is really to respond to some of the concerns we've heard for years around young people just not seeing themselves in the trades, not understanding the complexity or the diversity of the trades, and really providing that opportunity for paid experiences that can recruit more people to be interested in the training. The second chunk of money is about making sure that people who are in the pipeline right now as apprentices have every support possible to finish their training, including some income supports when they're training, income supports when they're laid off, and a streamlining of processes with provinces and territories that lead to more efficient training to get to that Red Seal. Actually, it's kind of staggering, but only about 30% of Red Seal apprentices finish with their full Red Seal certification. So we want to change that number, and it's one of the fastest ways to get people through. And finally, we're supporting employers to hire those first-year apprentices so we can get more people on the job training with the full Red Seal. So it's a real package that obviously builds on the work of transferring supports for provinces and territories every year.
Okay, but you know, all of this, it sounds good, right? There's support there for the employer to offset the cost of taking on an apprentice, direct support to the apprentices while they're doing their mandatory education, and then a completion bonus, right? It's
That's right.
To see it through.
I forgot that part. That's right. There's a $5,000 completion bonus at the end of the Red Seal completion, which is more than double what was offered before, and a real acknowledgement of the success of that Red Seal completion, but also helps people kickstart the next stage of their career.
Right. But for all of this to work, there's a lot of things that have to happen, right? Like this, there needs to be uptake on this, there needs to be interest in this, the execution of it needs to happen. The provinces, which bear a lot of responsibility in this particular area, they need to accelerate and complete their credential recognition across borders, which is a work in progress, right? So how quickly do you think this can be running at a scale where you can feel the difference in the workforce, do you think?
Well, actually, I just want to say that the Red Seal certification does provide credential recognition across the country. It's really the harmonization of some of the training that is happening right now. So safety training, for example, that's underway, and we are working with provinces and territories. We've removed a lot of our own regulatory barriers, as you know, in fact, most of them, and there's work happening between the provinces at the federal labor ministers' table and others. But this component is really intertwined with the second part that I was talking about, which is getting more people through the pipeline. Like, look, people are signing up every single year to be Red Seal crane operators, plumbers, electricians, automotive technicians, heavy equipment technicians, you name it. There's about almost 40 Red Seals in this country, and only 30% of them are getting through the pipeline. So obviously the fastest way to get people onto those job sites is to help people who are already in the pipeline of Red Seal training to get through much more quickly without the stops and starts, and without actually having to leave their skilled trades training because of income support problems or challenges around income. But I would also say that the recruitment end is something we have to work with provinces and territories on, and I will say that some provinces are doing a great great job in trying to really align their, especially college courses with what's happening at high school. So there are already, for example, co-op programs throughout the country in different strengths and different variations. This is going to provide a boost to that work by providing those paid experiences for youth, which often is the game changer in other youth employment programs. When kids are paid to experience what work in that sector is going to look like, employers get a chance to try out that young person. Oftentimes that's the pathway in.
Right, so there is a chicken and an egg scenario, though, at play in some of this, because we heard on the show last night from Sean Strickland, the Executive Director of Canada's Building Trades Union, and he says, you know, to get the interest, you need the projects, but to build the projects, you need the interest. So there is a cycle there that needs to get into sync if your major projects agenda and industrial policy and this employment policy and skills development agenda, if they're going to, you know, intersect and work at full capacity, right? So how do you have to calibrate that in the short to medium term?
Well, we've got other work happening across the country that we are very excited about, which is actually these sector alliances. These are sector-specific groups of individuals that are working on exactly what you're talking about, the data, more granular data about what's happening in education institutions like colleges, unions, even universities, and what actually is needed in that sector. So we're talking about transportation, energy and electricity, construction, and others. And so that work is also happening. But we do know, even without that granular data, that there is a deep shortage, in particular in red-skilled trades. And I was speaking to Sean Strickland myself last night. They're over the moon about this investment because it really does address all of those pinch points, from recruitment all the way through to encouraging employers to be part of that development of the pipeline of talent. You know, we need to ensure that as employers and as big projects are coming to life, that there are apprenticeship targets, that there are opportunities for employers to hire those apprentices, and that we do it quickly so that we don't lose the training capacity of the current Red Seal professionals on site. The last thing I'll say is, oftentimes I talk to people in their early 30s, and they're still the youngest person on a job site. It just gives you the sense of the profound need to act with urgency, and that's what this budget does. It provides those tools, really, no matter where someone is on their journey.
Well, look, there's certainly a big wave of retirements coming too in the next 5 years in this particular areas of the trades that you're going to need to account for. But how will you measure the outcomes of these specific policies to see if they're actually working and if the design is giving you the traction in these areas that you hope that they deliver?
Well, I mean, first of all, the great news is that the first part, in terms of recruit people into the trades, we've got these 100,000 positions. We're going to be able to really track how well and how able we are able to get kids into those positions. I mean, look, if we end up in 5 years and we still have a whole bunch of money left, then that didn't work either. But I don't think we're going to have that problem, because we're going to work with partners. And of course, with the youth unemployment rate so high, this is an opportunity for people to earn some money and to be able to get some really great experience in high quality, high paying jobs that often come with benefits and pensions and safe workplaces. The second component is also, I would say, a good way to measure is how many more Red Seal apprentices are graduating in 5 years from now, for example, than were when we first started off. And that will be a demonstration of whether or not income supports, streamlining and modernizing the Red Seal process, working on things like online certification, online logbooks actually help facilitate that passage. And then finally, of course, we'll see how many workers, how many employers take up the opportunity to get that $10,000 grant to hire a Red Seal apprentice, and how many of them keep those Red Seal apprentices throughout the journey. So there are great ways to collect metrics on whether or not this is going to work.
Well, that might be the early indicator, how many people take up the $10,000, right? Because if you wait until the end of the 5-year process, we're going to be the shortage might not be solved. But look, I want to ask you very quickly, if I can, about another measure in the budget, and this was the changes to the disability tax credit. The government, changed the number of conditions that require annual verification and broadened the number of professionals that can certify someone to qualify for this credit, and then that becomes a gateway for other federal benefits. And this aspect of it, broadly praised. But we heard from groups like Inclusion Canada, who think there's still a problem with the definition of what a disability is in the legislation, that it is too narrow and not broad to deal with, for example, intellectual disabilities the way it covers physical ones. Is this something the government is willing to look at to broaden this even further, bearing in mind that I know these changes were designed to open up the bottleneck that exists in getting into it in the first place?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. These changes are after years of people advocating, including through members of Parliament's offices. I've had many conversations with constituents about the burden of complex applications year after year when the condition is not changing, when the condition is severe, when the condition does prevent someone from being able to work full-time or to be able to participate fully. And so I'm pleased that there is praise for the change in the requirements for that I would say long-form application, and that these streamlined applications are going to bring some relief. And actually adding professionals that can provide that assessment was another call by the disability community and people living with illnesses. And I will say this, I have also met with people that are talking about needing to expand the definition of what disability is, including, for example, MS Canada that talks about the need for episodic diseases to be considered, and we're continuing to have those conversations. I think they're very important conversations, and I look forward to that work with my colleagues.
Okay, so but that's still a potential, like it's not a process that is with a target date, it's something you're just looking at as a government potentially?
What I would say is those conversations are ongoing, and yes, I don't have a defined date where I will be able to say this or that, but what I can say is we're open to making sure that everyone who's living with a disability that prevents them from reaching their full potential, that prevents them from working and earning a living, that really presents them with daily challenges, they need to be considered, and we have a process to do that, and we will continue that process.
Minister of Jobs and Families, Patty Hajdu, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.